Okay, folks, here we go. Proportional reasoning, which is technically, according to your curriculum guide, Unit 9 in this course, but it's actually the 8th chapter in your textbook. We're going to start with sections 8.1 and 2, looking at some bits and pieces of those today. We're going to talk about rates and unit rates and what those things mean. Okay, so we're going to try and understand what rates are. We're going to compare rates and unit rates. We're going to talk about how we calculate rates, and then we're going to put rates in some kind of real-world context. So let's get started. It says a rate is a comparison of two related quantities, usually having different units. I think your textbook on this one says always, but I can think of some examples that don't fit that mold. Okay, so let's start. It says a new smart car has a fuel efficiency rating of 4.2 liters per 100 kilometers. So that's a rate. You burn 4.2 liters of gas every 100 kilometers you travel. And liters per 100 kilometers, that sort of way to represent this, liters per 100 kilometers, is the standard way to represent fuel efficiency in Canada. And I think in most countries that relied specifically on the metric system. Second one, the local supermarket sells salmon at $10.99 per 500 grams. Okay, so we got $10.99 per 500 grams here. All right, so that's another rate. It tells us dollars per 500 grams. You'll see all kinds of different ways for those things to be done on grocery shelves, but we'll get into another example with that shortly. A participant in an aerobics class burns 100 calories every 20 minutes. Why would they use 20 minutes? Well, maybe that's how long the aerobics class is. I don't know. I don't do aerobics. But the idea is it's how much of one thing associated with a certain quantity of another. That's what a rate is. Okay. Then we're going to talk about something called unit rates. And a unit rate is just a rate like the others, except we sort of standardize the rate so that the second number has a quantity of 1. So the speed limit on the Trans-Canada Highway in Alberta is 110 kilometers per hour. So that means you'd go 110 kilometers for every 1 hour. And that's the idea. We're standardizing that second number. Okay. The price for making long-distance calls outside Canada is $1.15 per minute. That's 1 minute. And lobster has a current market value of $11.50 per pound. So that's per 1 pound. So the idea is that the second quantity that we're comparing in our rate has to have a value of 1. And then if that's the case, we're talking about a unit rate. Let's calculate and compare some rates. It says a local supermarket sells lobster for $11.99 per 500 grams, but the traveling fishmonger sells 2 lobsters for $18. Which is a better price? All right, let's see if we can get this, or sorry, not 2 lobsters, 2 pounds of lobster. LB is pounds. 2 pounds, or 2 pound lobsters. Oh, sorry, I see. Each lobster is 2 pounds. First day with my new eyes here, I think. Okay, so a local supermarket. So let's compare these two things. Let's look at the supermarket first. And then we'll look at the fishmonger. Fishmonger is someone who sells fish out of the back of a truck or something. Used to be a cart back in medieval England. So we'll say we've got $11.99 for 500 grams at the supermarket. And we've got $18 from the fishmonger for 2 pounds. Okay. So if we want to compare to see which is a better rate or which is a better price, it's probably a good idea to make sure all the units are the same first, and then to get them both to be unit rates. And when they're both unit rates, we'll have comparing apples to apples. Not that we're not comparing apples to apples here. It's lobsters to lobsters. Okay. So we're going to say $11.99. And I'm going to write this rate as a fraction this way because it's just easier to see and work with when we're converting the units. So let's go, this one's in pounds and this one's in grams. I guess a common ground here could be kilograms. So let's take this one. And if we're going to convert that to kilograms, we should know that there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. And this way, when I write this multiplication, we get unit analysis, we call this, and it cancels out the grams. But we should know about converting unit with unit analysis from grade 10. And then I'm going to have 1,000 over 500, which gives us 2. So I'm going to end up with dollars per kilogram, and I just take $11.99 and I multiply that by 2, and I think that's going to be $23.98. So we get $23.98 per kilogram if we're buying lobster at the supermarket. What about the fishmonger? Well, $18 for 2 pounds. Let's convert those pounds into single kilograms, and then we should be in business. So we've got $18 for 2 pounds. We're going to multiply that by, I think there's about 2.2 pounds per kilogram. One's mass and one's weight, but as long as we're close to the Earth's surface, they're almost the same thing. Haha. So we got about 2.2 pounds per kilogram. You can see the units of pounds will cancel out here. So let's take this 2 and the 2.2 and reduce that. 2.2 divided by 2 is 1.1. So I'm just going to multiply my 18 by 1.1, and I think that's going to give me 1980. So I have $19.80 per 1 kilogram, and it looks like by by more than $4. The fishmonger is cheaper than the supermarket. I'm going to go to the fishmonger. I don't know about you, as long as the quality is the same. It says putting rates in context. So let's identify a possible context for each rate. So where might these numbers have come from? 25 parts per million. I'll tell you where I got that one. That's the concentration of sea salt in brackish water, in certain brackish water. So brackish water is like if you're way in a bay somewhere. Brackish water is sort of a mix between salt water and fresh water. Salt water is usually about 33 parts per million, so this is somewhere in between. Okay, so you can see how we can have a rate for that. Parts per million molecules of water. It says 1.5 megabits per second. I know what that is. That's the the upload speed I get when I'm uploading your videos to the internet from a remote location. So that's upload speed via modem. Okay. And $1.14.9 or 114.9 cents per liter. Yeah, that's going to be gas price, isn't it? So we see lots of ways that rates are quoted in the real world. So it's a comparison of two related quantities. The unit rate is where the second quantity is 1, and unit rates are usually easier to use for comparison for two things. And all we have to do is take the first number and divide by the second to get it down to a unit rate. Good luck.